What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of my What If Spider-Man Replaced Batman series. I know, it's been like 2 months since the last part. Well, it's finally here today. But I understand that there may be some new viewers joining us on this video because it has been a while. So I think it's due time for a recap. So, What If Spider-Man Replaced Batman is a simple premise that I kinda suck at trying to name correctly. Essentially, this all takes place in a normal DC timeline. However, circumstances occur that prevent Bruce Wayne from ever becoming Batman. What are those circumstances? Maybe we'll find out in like part 20 or maybe not. Instead, a Peter Parker exists in this timeline, and he gets bitten by a radioactive spider at a LexCorp exhibit, and in the place of Batman, becomes Gotham's protector. So, in year 0, his Uncle Ben dies at the hands of the Penguin mob, and Peter uses his powers for good for the first time to stop the Penguin. In year 0, Spider-Man faces the Long Halloween, together with Harvey Dent and Commissioner Gordon. In year 2, Spider-Man's psychology professor goes missing and takes the form of the harrowing Scarecrow. He meets Dick Grayson, who becomes his sidekick, the Scarlet Spider. And now, in year 3, a mysterious visitor from another planet makes himself known to Peter and warns him of an impending doom. Peter and the Martian Manhunter travel to Metropolis to meet another alien who perhaps can shed more light on the situation and even help them against the threat of Brainiac. Really? How can I help? Jean offers to share the information telepathically, but Superman shakes his head. You see, multiple times in the comics, we've been shown that when Superman falls under mind control, or his mind is manipulated in a way to turn him against humanity, there's nobody really capable enough to stop him. This is the type of thing which fuels Batman to turn against his Justice League teammates, and even to go as far to form plans to stop them. Superman would therefore also be aware of this potential. I guess we can call it a weakness, where he would be careful enough to ensure his mind is not compromised. Especially now, in a universe without a Batman, he wouldn't be safe with the knowledge that there isn't someone out there who could defeat him. They explain everything to Superman, who listens intently. When they finish, he takes a moment to process it all. "I'm sorry about Mars, John. I too am the lone son of a dead planet. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'll deal with Brainiac." You can't possibly do it alone. I'm pretty sure he can, he's Superman after all. No, don't take Brainiac so lightly. You will need help with this, Superman. I tend to work alone. I don't want you all risking your life to keep up with me. A sentiment that would have oddly resonated with Peter a year ago. You see, this kind of stereotype of working alone is something that is heavily associated with Batman and his media. But I'd argue that this is something that more resonates with the character of Superman, even more so than Batman. You see, Superman knows that he's all-powerful. There's not really anybody in DC who could challenge him in like a bare-knuckle brawl. Say perhaps for like the more godlike entities in DC. In canon, he always assumes that role as the protector of Earth type of thing. It's when he begins forming relationships with other superheroes that he's able to kind of relax on the idea of being a sole protector. In a world without Batman, who is typically depicted as Superman's like best friend, which you might think is weird because they're pitted against each other in every way conceivable. But in this world, you could argue that he hasn't really realized that humans are not so fragile, or he hasn't really realized the value of teamwork kind of thing. Why would Superman need a team, Of course, without Batman, there wouldn't really be a Justice League, at least at this point in the timeline. For one, he does all the funding, but more importantly, he's basically a leader type of figure, a founding member as well. But of course, with any large-scale threat, there's only so much a single figure can do. And so sometimes it's almost like fate that a team must develop to stop a big threat. Back with Spider-Man, he's realizing that he's not all-powerful either. He can't be in Metropolis and Gotham for one. He's realizing that it's vital to have people you can trust in this lifestyle. I thought like that too, but We all have our moments of weakness. It's good to have someone to pick you up in times like that. Superman chuckles and casually brushes Spider-Man off. He looks to his left suddenly and leans in as if he were listening to something. "Excuse me," and he whizzes off as fast as he had arrived. In the distance, an explosion erupts out the side of a building. Spider-Man looks at MM. "Come on, we need to help too." He swings towards the scene with the Manhunter trailing close behind. They assist in the evacuation of the area and figure out that the danger had come from Star Labs. When they investigate further, they find Superman within the deepest part of the building.
"John, stop! You're hurting innocent people."
Peter hears Superman call out. A robotic voice responds.
"I need this, Superman."
MM and Spider-Man attempt to get closer to Superman's voice, but then Peter's senses are ticked off. "Huh, you weren't supposed to be here." A dark figure leaps down from the ceiling behind them. Peter spins around on the spot, blasting his web shooters at the mysterious foe. The figure points his wrist gauntlets and spews out webs of his own, yet they are viscous, slimy and red in color. A shoddy recreation of Peter's batch. It collides both with Spider-Man's own webs and with Martian Manhunter's face, taking them both by surprise. "What the? You're like me," Black Spider remarks as he bounces around the corridor, showcasing his impressive agility. "Like you? Hell no, you're looking at the one and only," Spider-Man yells as he launches himself at Black Spider. As the fight intensifies, Martian Manhunter finally wipes the webs off his face. Peter turns to him and points forward. "MM, you go ahead and find Superman." He nods and flies off. They continue, matching each other blow for blow. Peter would be surprised at this, as he's always had to hold back as he does so in the true canon. But here he's sure that if he relents for a second, this foe will gain an immense advantage. He's trained, brutal, and more bloodthirsty than Peter. "I know you. You're that kid from Gotham. Yeah, you've got a big price on your head." Peter realizes that he's heard this before from the assassin Deadshot. At that point he had no idea what Deadshot was even talking about, but in this internal discussion that he's having, he first figures out that this fake spider must also be a hired gun, but the hit on his head may have come from no other than the Penguin. Peter would go on to kind of justify this in his head. He comes to this conclusion because for 3 years he's operated as Spider-Man, and in all of those years he has heard nothing from the Penguin. His influence and sway over the city was iron tight for so many years, yet once he went to jail, it dissipated like it had been nothing. In passing thoughts during these years, he may have thought it was weird and probably checked up on Penguin, whether it be like face-to-face visits or just a checkup from afar. Whatever it may be, Penguin has made no attempts to escape Blackgate, and for reasons he's only thinking now, Peter doesn't like this single bit. Losing focus in the fight, Black Spider gains an upper hand over Peter. Black Spider in the comics, as far as I know, has no relation or similarities to Peter Parker. He's simply just another Batman villain and assassin. From what I've seen, I don't think he has any crazy abilities on a scale compared to that of Spider-Man, but interestingly enough, in the Young Justice canon, Eric Needham is given powers and abilities that are essentially bar for bar copy of Spider-Man, even with his own web shooters that he uses to swing around. To my assumption, this was done due to the fact that Young Justice and Spectacular Spider-Man share showrunners, and so Black Spider is voiced by none other than Josh Keaton, who doesn't need explaining if you're a Spider-Man fan. So essentially, Black Spider in Young Justice pays homage to Spider-Man by having Eric as a dark, twisted copy, which also served as the inspiration for me to begin writing down notes about this what if. I also want to shout out someone in the comments. They kind of reminded me about this character, but I can't find the comment, so I'll try and find it and put it in post. If you know who you are, shout out to you, man. But also, we know that the radioactive spider exists to some capacity, as it gave Peter his powers. This is a prime opportunity to give Eric Needham those powers as well. Having the same powers and abilities means that they can match each other in strength, durability, and speed. Eric possibly has a slight edge in combat due to his experience as an assassin. Regardless, Peter vastly outclasses Eric in terms of IQ. Eric is at worst a lowly crook, and at best an assassin who gets no diffed by Batman on the regular. And so with this essentially being the Young Justice version, watchers of that show would know that Eric's web fluid comes from a sort of gas canister attached to his back. As we saw in No Way Home, when Toby blocked off Andrew's web shooters, Peter could recreate that here, just blocking off the web shooters from the source, or even just ripping the canister off his back. I honestly can't find out if Black Spider ever had a spider sense in Young Justice. He obviously doesn't in comic canon. But if he doesn't have spider sense, then that is a major disadvantage. In simple terms, Black Spider is a Spider-Man victim. Jokes aside, seeing that the battle isn't going his way, Black Spider would probably flee with Spider-Man unable to pursue due to the surrounding chaos. Instead, he goes in Martian Manhunter's direction, leading him to the main hub inside of Star Labs. The heat is the first thing that he'll notice as it pushes him back. No normal man could survive this. The entire room is just swept up in flames. Superman staggers, attempting to rise, but he falls weakly back to his knees. Peter can't see Jean through the fire, but standing firm before Superman, he sees the cause of this chaos. The metallic menace known as Metallo. A rock with a green light emanates from his hand. Something Peter may not recognize, but we know as kryptonite, the source of Superman's only weakness. Okay, maybe not his only weakness, but Metallo has brought Superman to his knees easily and places the kryptonite inside of his chest. Spider-Man defends himself against the heat. It singes his suit, which was definitely not made to withstand this sort of pressure. Through the flames, he can see Martian Manhunter encircled by a ring of fire. Struggling against its intensity, he braces himself one last time and leaps in. Something interesting about the nature of Spider-Man's web fluid is that they are actually fireproof, apparently able to withstand the fire produced by the Human Torch. I couldn't find any actual panel depicting this, so if it's false then just let me know. But since they are fireproof, Peter could use his webs to patch up the parts of his costume that are tearing up, but also more importantly, he could use them to free Martian Manhunter. But he sees that the Martian Manhunter has completely gone into shock. He puts Jean outside of the room for his safety before diving in again to help Superman. At this point, Superman is severely weakened due to the prolonged exposure to kryptonite. Peter wouldn't be aware of its effects as he would have never encountered this type before. Kryptonite is, meant to be a rare material, despite everyone and their auntie having it in the comics. The knowledge of it would realistically be limited to the scientific elite of Metropolis, which of course includes Lex Luthor. So Peter is wondering why Superman isn't getting up, most likely due to his idolization and the godlike image that Superman portrays. But it would be easy for him to put together that Metallo is the source of some kind of weakness for Superman. But Metallo is a established villain. I mean, his whole gimmick is that he's powered by kryptonite, Superman's one weakness, and this fact would probably be obvious every time he makes a public appearance. Perhaps the Daily Planet would make an effort to kind of conceal this information from the public to protect Superman in a way. The details don't really matter. Even if Spider-Man does know about kryptonite, it doesn't change things. He shoots his web at Metallo, who grabs it with his hand and violently pulls Peter towards him. It's easy to underestimate Metallo's strength, considering he is wholly powered by kryptonite, and so when you see him easily dunking on Superman, it's not that impressive because it is a heavily weakened Superman. But to be honest, fighting Superman is still a feat in and of itself. I'm using a video by Ivan the Unstoppable for reference. You should check it out if you want to know exactly how strong Metallo can be. But the main points are that although he's powered by kryptonite, he's still punching Superman through skyscrapers. His blows shatter buildings when he clashes with Superman. Like, he is really out here treating Superman like he's a ragdoll. We have to give him some props. I mean, I always say Spider-Man is underrated when it comes to physical strength, but here he is not trading hands with Metallo or even trying to overpower him. The only way to defeat Metallo would be to remove his kryptonite heart or core, as is usually the case. Thing is, most ways of ending Metallo is just actually straight up killing him, which I guess doesn't really matter as he always ends up coming back with a new body or upgrades. Anyway, Spider-Man is obviously capable of removing the core. His webs are strong enough to hold the thing for one, so while Metallo could break free, it would take some effort. By this point, Spider-Man can just rip out the kryptonite core, leaving Metallo completely powerless. What is this thing? Spider-Man asks as he inspects the rock in his hand. Superman struggles to his feet and backs away slowly. That's kryptonite. It weakens me, he says as he's trying to catch his breath. How do we get rid of it? Spider-Man warily keeps the kryptonite at a distance. Superman points over to a lead container that Star Labs used to store the kryptonite. It doesn't penetrate lead. Spider-Man quickly puts the kryptonite in the lead container and webs it shut. The blaze angers and the room around them begins to collapse. Superman falls again. The kryptonite completely stripped him of his powers, leaving him essentially a normal man. Spider-Man jumps to his aid, helping him to his feet and out of the room. Martian Manhunter is waiting outside, similarly weakened but conscious. Spider-Man, I'm sorry, it's okay, help Superman. Together, they escort Superman out of the building. He breathes a sigh of relief when he sees the sunlight, basking in its warmth. The exposure helps him recover quickly, and he races back inside of the building to put out the fires. After the incident, Metallo's melted body was recovered, but his brain intact. The trio sit on a roof of a building and enjoy their victory. Hey, you sure you're alright? That Metallo did a number on the both of you. It's easy to forget that I have weaknesses too, Superman admits. That kryptonite, it's a remnant of the planet that I'm from. Oh, I get it. Its radioactivity is finely tuned to your alien physiology. Yeah, that's not cool. It takes my powers and leaves me useless. Not much I can do, but I still fight. I commend you, Superman. Here on Earth, I too may be one of the most powerful beings alive, but I have such a simple weakness. Fire. Spider-Man was right, and today he was the only one who could stop Metallo. We may be strong, John, but we are not gods. If Brainiac is as much of a threat as you describe, I can't fight it alone. Thank you, Superman. I fear that even with all three of us, it still may not be enough. There are others like us. They'll help. Boss, it's as you said. Good. I will have what's mine. And that is it for today's part of What If Spider-Man Replaced Batman. You know, you kind of notice that the parts are getting shorter and shorter. Like, my bad. But honestly, I'm just trying to keep a structure towards the parts. Like, I'm not trying to like combine two parts and have so many things in just one episode, because then it will just be too like complicated. You know what, let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below, and thank you for your continued support. I've been your boy Polo. Peace!